think what is common, what bonds my past lives one with the other, is my inner search for meaning, my spiritual quest, let's say, for the divine, for the meaning of the existence. Because I noticed while thinking about these last 10 years, in which I explored about 35 past lives as a patient, besides my experience as a therapist in past life regression, that I have to some extent three main preoccupations in my past lives. If I were a woman, of course that we come after so many years, hundreds or thousands of years, in which women did not usually have what we nowadays call a job. So if I am a woman, I do not have a main preoccupation, passion, or what we might call a hobby or a job. But in the other past lives that I impersonated, I have two kinds of things that capture all my attention, all my energy, and all my love. I have either lives as an artist or lives on a spiritual path, which might or might not be connected to a terrestrial religion. If we speak about artists, of course that I have some lives, and Tchaikovsky is not the only one, which are very strongly connected with music which still has a very important place in my soul, and which I love enormously even nowadays. But I also have some past lives when I was a painter, when I was an architect, when I was keen on theater, opera, even on cinema. So I was attracted by this idea of creating art, of imagining beautiful things and making them with my own hands and pouring my soul and my feelings in something I was creating. So I have a lot of lives characterized by this artistic mission, let's say. But I also have the other kind of past lives, which I think that are the most numerous ones, which are defined by a very strong inner spiritual quest. I have lives in the ancient times when I was a prophet. I have a life when I was a Tibetan monk, a hermit in the Himalayan mountains. I had a life when I was a monk in an Orthodox European Eastern Church. I had a life when I was one of the monks who helped Saint Francis of Assisi in order to build up his church, both his church in the real meaning of the word, the building, and his church meaning the religion he gave birth to. So I have a lot of lives in which I was defined by this inner urge of finding answers regarding the divine, regarding our soul, regarding our life mission, the meaning of life, the purpose of sufferance, and so on. And it's not at all a mere coincidence that these two main preoccupations, the artistic ones and the spiritual ones, are also extremely present in my current life. So what I find fascinating is the fact that without being conscious about it, we do have this tendency to follow our own footprints from one life to another. of course, that we are not aware of, but we so frequently continue our own work and our own missions. And of course that I started regression therapy for its therapeutical and healing aim. But besides this important purpose of healing, the journey of self-discovery in the regression process is a fascinating one, because each past life is like a piece of puzzle which make up your current being and your identity. And sometimes we change completely our profession or our mission or our search for the passion of our life from one lifetime to another. But other times we continue exactly the same job, the same profession that we have. It doesn't matter if you change it or if we keep on learning and on developing on the same path. What it is important is that from life to life we follow the steps of evolution, that each lifetime we start our life to a point and we finish it at another point, and then when we return to Earth, we continue from this point to another point, either by going, as I have already said, on the same professional path or by changing it completely. So I think that this is what is common in my past lives, a spiritual quest and a strong attraction for the artistic field. Besides this, of course, that what defines my previous lives and also my current one are the persons, the dear ones with whom I'm sharing these life stories, because I find almost in each lifetime the same spiritual beings that return to be near myself, and we play one for the other important roles in our lives. The roles change, of course, because, for example, a person who was my father might be during this lifetime be my son, or a person who was my sister might be my mother, and so on. But even if the role change on the stage, let's say, the spirits remain quite the same, because we do come from the same spiritual family in heaven. And I want to close up this question by showing to you a small drawing which represents a tree. In my opinion, based on what I discovered in these last 10 years following my regression sessions, we as human beings are like trees. What I mean is that each segment, each element that makes up a tree, its trunk or its branches, are each of them a past life of ours. But what I have noticed is that there are some extremely important past lives which form up the trunk of this tree. These important past lives, which I call main avatars, are, as a matter of fact, the lives which determine our character, our personality in a very deep way, and which push our evolution in a faster and more powerful way. While the branches are formed up by what I call secondary lifetimes or secondary avatars, which are important for our healing as spiritual beings, but which are not defining in the same important way our evolution. For example, we might have an important life, which is, as I mentioned, part of the trunk of the tree, the spine, let's say, in which we had a very important trauma regarding our child, and we have a problem of maternity, then we might decide as a spirit to return to earth only to solve this problem of maternity and the particular relationship with our child. In this case, this secondary avatar is born on earth to solve particularly this problem of maternity, and it acquires its specific mission, but it does not influence our preoccupation, our evolution and our spiritual growth in the same major way that do the main lives which make up the trunk, the spine of the tree. For myself, Tchaikovsky, which is, as we know, the topic of my book, represents one of these main incarnations on earth. But I want to stress once again that his notoriety, the fact that he is famous or not on earth, is not relevant at all for the importance of my spiritual being. This is only something interesting, fascinating, or funny when we discover under trance a well-known person. But for my growth as a being, if a former avatar was a famous person on earth or not is completely irrelevant. So, in conclusion, what is important to know is that we do have a fascinating architecture of our past lives that bond one with the other, and they are like the steps on a ladder of evolution for each of us that will finally get closer and closer back to the divine.